Is the media controlled by the pablum-puking liberals?
Would that it were, Mark. In fact, the press is a vast right-wing conglomerate.
No, jeez.
Everybody.
A vast right-wing conglomerate. You mean it's owned by right-wingers and run by left-wingers?
No, in cartoon terms, that's correct. The people who
in
own...
cartoon terms?
Yes.
I can't understand cartoon terms.
This show is a cartoon show, Mark.
Wait a second. If this show is a cartoon, and he's making fun of you, then he's goofy. Yeah! Explain to me your concept of the right wing. Wait a second, cool it. Explain to me your right-wing concept of the press.
Well, as everyone knows, the rich control most things in the United States.
The rich control the press in the United States.
Of course.
And you think all the rich are conservatives?
Oh, no, I think rich wealth tends to create conservative views. Who owns the press in the United States? Very wealthy people.
Tell me who owns the press in the United States.
Pardon?
Tell me who owns the press. Who owns Penthouse?
Bob Guccione.
Conservative?
No.
No. Oh.
No.
Who owns Playboy?
Hugh Hefner.
Conservative?
No, absolutely not.
I see.
Who owns the New York Times? Who owns the Washington Post? Who owns the LA Times? Who owns Time Magazine?
Who's the editor? Who's the editor, all right, of the Washington Post? Ben Bradley, am I right?
Ben Bradley.
Conservative?
Absolutely not.
Oh, you're reading this amazing. It's run by the conservatives. This guy hasn't named a damn conservative
No, I
yet.
said it's owned by conservatives. It's owned by conservatives, and those who own the presses control the presses. But, Maude, you're absolutely right. The people in the press, the working press, tends to be left of center. And I think that comes merely from education.
Surveys have shown that 2/3 of the people that work in the media, the editors and the reporters, are liberal left. Now, these are surveys...
How do you identify them as liberal left?
Well, let me cite a survey that was done by...
How many of them voted for Jimmy Carter?
Well, there it was 81%, according to a survey done by Lichter and Rothman. And that is the minimum of the vote for the Democratic candidate for president in the election since 1964. In 64, it was as high as 94% for Johnson over Goldwater. So that gives you some idea of where they're coming from.
But virtually all of the papers they work for endorse the Republican candidate.
Once every 4 years, the publisher gets a chance to endorse a candidate. But the reporters and the editors who are deciding what is going into the paper, they're working every day. And they're putting their prejudices and their biases in the news every day, day in and day out. And the publishers, including Arthur Rock Sulzberger, who is the publisher of the New York Times, who is not a conservative, as you know, Steve, nor is Kay Graham at the Washington Post. These people, they don't go down and say what goes into the paper, what's going to be on the front page. They're out of it.
Reed,
you know that.
Reed, I've read the accuracy in media materials. If the liberal press is biased, then so are you.
I agree.
This is a...
You're absolutely right. I am biased, and I'll tell you why I'm biased. I'm biased in favor of freedom, in favor of the free enterprise system we have in this country, in favor of defending it and protecting it, and I have never made any bones about that since I started Accuracy in Media 19 years ago.
Is there an organized conspiracy by the liberals in this country in mass media?
I think there's as much of a conspiracy of the liberals in the mass media as there are in law, medicine, any other profession.
Then you agree that those other professions are also conspiratorial as far as the left is concerned. I appreciate that.
I'd say if you think the doctors are run by conspiracy, then I'll grant it to
I asked you the same question.
Conspiracy in the sense that Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, and Dan Rather get together and decide what they're going to do? No, absolutely not. It doesn't have to be that way. Philip put his finger on this when he said it's education. What these people that are running the media, they are, for the most part, graduates of our liberal arts colleges. You look at the professors in these colleges, they're overwhelmingly liberal left. These kids go in, as I did when I went to college, they come out indoctrinated with those left-wing ideas for the most part. And that's where it starts.
Go ahead, Philip. Go ahead, Philip. You look about the age to have fought in the Vietnam War, did you?
No, no.
You weren't in Canada, were you?
No, I was.
Oh, okay.
I'm proud to say I was a draft dodger, though, and if I had to do it again, I would.
Did I hear that right? You were a draft dodger? You were a draft dodger? Let him talk. Let the man talk. I admire anyone who tells the truth, and I admired that small bit of truth coming from Philip. Go ahead.
Oh, I try to dodge all criminal wars, Mark. But I want to say that the left is also guilty, as Reed is, of the censorship of ideas. I remember being appalled that people on my side of the fence were opposed to showing America on television because they felt it would tick off the Russians in an area, a time when we're moving towards détente. I remember seeing letters to the editor of the Times day after day by good liberals saying, this is bad television. I say, let 1,000 political flowers bloom in the media. And what happened?
You get
the
a
left
bunch
was
of blooming
disappointed.
idiots.
What happened? Now we are on the verge of détente with Russia and a major treaty, even after America. So the point is, our politics ought not to control our entertainment.
Mr. Mayor.
Let me tell you, this myth about the, quote, liberal establishment press, I couldn't get a story about the Great Peace March in the New York Times or in the Washington Post.
It was boring.
No, it wasn't
It was boring.
What
Even
do you
the
know about it?
problem-puking liberals knew that was boring. Let's hold hands for nuclear peace.
Mr. Downey, once again, you are confusing the facts. Hands Across America was something that had to do with hunger. You've got some very hungry people out here right now. But let's not confuse hands and feet.
Okay, fine.
Okay?
Tell us about whether you think the press treated Ferraro
let's talk
properly.
about different parts of the anatomy, if you want to talk about different parts of the anatomy.
Let's talk about the press. Did they treat Ferraro fairly? Do you think they treated her fairly?
Do I think they treated her fairly? No. Do I think they treated Ronald Reagan fairly? They bent over backwards. You keep on pointing to your backside. Well, they were on their backsides as far as Ronald Reagan. They bent over backwards. All they did was report that he smiled, that balloons went up. They treated Jerry Ferraro terribly unfairly.
How?
When the same thing about income taxes came out about George Bush, it was played over in one day and he was patted on the head. Okay, now let me just tell you that what the press has said very simply, and what you're doing right now too, you're trying to boost up your ratings by sensationalism.
Honey, I can't boost my ratings with someone as boring as you. You're boring. You're boring. You're not telling me anything. If I was going to boost my ratings, I'd get the real person here. Your old boss. You're nothing. You're a zero. Forget it. Go ahead, Mr. Scheuer. Go ahead, Mr. Scheuer.
One of the most.
You know me well enough to call me honey, okay?
What should I call you, bitch? You're one of these women libbers who can't be a honey or a sweetie or a baby. Huh? You got it, pal. I'm a sexist. I'm all in favor of sex. Go ahead, Mr. Scheuer.
Really a good advertisement for
There's an extraordinarily important.
Shameful how you're treating
An extraordinarily important
If
point.
you think it's so shameful, why don't you get the hell off here then? Take her out for a drink.
Get me off that
Take her out for a drink.
You can't get me off that
Take
easy.
her out for a drink. Go ahead, Mr. Scheuer.
There's an extraordinarily important point
that you made that has not been dealt with. You said in a very pejorative, nasty way that the press creates news. That's part of the press's obligation to dig out.
Not to create it.
Yes.
Not to create it, no. To find it, yes. To create it, no.
Oh, what's the difference?
To report.
There's a big difference.
Simplistic.
You don't know the difference
That's so
between creative
simplistic.
and find.
Most
I can
news
go
is
to
out
kindergarten.
there, you
You
gotta go
with
and
your
find
great
it.
education don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're right for these fancy newspapers. You don't want to crap. I'll be back and goes, how does the press see me? I'll tell you.